Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. We're back again. This is our double show of the week. We did a bonus episode on Sunday, so if you missed that, check it out. We went through all the bowl games. We're doing a pick'em here at Southbound Sports, so hopefully you were able to get involved with that as we're giving away a free t-shirt to the winner. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm here with my co-hosts, Matty B, and Jeff is back in place of Rick. Rick's out again. He didn't make it to the bowl pick'em, and hopefully he'll be back next week. Starting with high tempo, I'm going to kick it off here. I saw Florida Atlantic, Lane Kiffin. I mentioned him before. I like his style, his trolling on Twitter, and I was hoping that he would get a look at one of the Power 5 conference teams, but he signed a 10-year extension with Florida Atlantic, and currently the Owls are up 28-3. If you listen to our bowl show, I was very high on them because I was under the assumption that Lane Kiffin was going to coach all out to try to get a position higher up. But I'm glad he got the extension, and I'm looking forward to see him coach some more. So we'll go around the horn. We'll go with you, Jeff. What's your high tempo for this week?
So my high tempo for this week is about the Steeler game. I was in attendance this weekend at Heinz Field with the Patriots Steeler game, and it blows my mind how bad the NFL has butchered the was a catch scenario that's going on in the NFL right now. The thing that makes me the most mad about it is you basically have to have a law degree now to interpret what a catch is in the NFL. They need to fix this in the offseason because it happened a couple years ago with the Dez Bryant catch, the Calvin Johnson catch, and now it happens again on a huge game that's essentially going to decide AFC home field advantage in the playoffs, which could ultimately decide which team makes the Super Bowl this year. So I think it's bullshit. I was at the game. I remember, I looked at my mom. She asked why they're reviewing it. I'm like, oh, they must just be reviewing it to see if he touched him before he crossed the goal line, because that's the only thing I could think of. And then when they overturned it, the stadium went wild. I think everyone was just in pure disbelief. Everyone I looked around, and everyone was just shocked at what transpired there. But the NFL butchered it. It's a bad look. Could determine who's making the Super Bowl this year in the AFC, because now the road looks like it's going through New England to get to the Super Bowl in the AFC. So that's my high tempo topic of the week. The NFL pissed poor job. The refs don't know what the hell they're doing as far as what a catch is concerned.
All right, we're going to get into that in a little bit here. Matt, what's your high tempo topic for this week?
I see that it's being flirted again, that Vince McMahon is starting to put together a separate entertainment group aside from the WWE and could possibly be bringing the XFL back. I hope that he learned it from his mistakes when he attempted to do the XFL. And if he patterns the model more of a USFL, that he doesn't try to directly compete with the NFL, but provide a separate market for football, and doesn't try to make it as cookie cutter as the current NFL status is, they could really do something special with it. I think they had an opportunity when they originally put the XFL out there, and you figure at the time that it was out, a lot of the spread offenses like Urban Meyer and other guys like that were really starting to come into their own. So just imagining like Mike Leach and Rich Rodriguez and Urban Meyer led teams in a league where they can just have these wide open offenses. It could really be something interesting. I'm curious to see how that develops and what that would look like if they do decide to bring it back.
Yeah, and I know, Matt, me and you, we watched that a lot. We were probably the only two viewers that the XFL had at that time. And I'm excited that they're even thinking of the possibility of bringing it back. To me, that's more exciting than the 4-game like spring ball season that they're going to have. And I don't know if the XFL is going to go in the spring or not. But like you said, my thoughts exactly. I would like to see them get some athletes out there in space. They're worried about big hits in the NFL. Why not just have a competing league go the opposite direction? The NFL has been kind of a dinosaur with these evolving offenses. We've talked about it on the show, where you have college guys come into the league used to playing spread, and they're not used to playing these pro-style offenses, and that's what everybody runs. So it's a stiff learning curve. What if guys that don't make that roster have a way to go or a place to go? And for it to be successful, I would like to see it kind of stay regional. And it doesn't matter where they pick in the United States, but try to build up kind of like those close rivalries. If you think of like the college, how college football got big, it's because you had local rivalries within a certain range. Now that might not work with television. I don't know if they could fit 8 teams somewhere where they're not competing with the NFL, but That's what I would like to see. Even if they just did the big markets on the East Coast, New York, Philly, DC, Boston, maybe even Pittsburgh, like just pick 8 cities that are relatively close within driving distance and build the league from that. You saw it happen with like the MLS. They tried to make too many teams across the United States, but then you don't have that connection to the other teams. Who cares if New York beats Chicago or LA? But if you're in the middle of the state, like between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, or Pittsburgh and Cleveland, or Pittsburgh and Baltimore, like the Steelers are here, that's where you get these rivalries that the NFL shows, and those are big games. If you take those away, that's one of the reasons why I don't think they get rid of the Buffalo Bills, because it's in those big markets and they're all relatively close, and those people, you interact with them. If you're a fan of another team, you're going to interact with that other team's fan. If they spread it out and try to just hit the 4 biggest cities, I think it's going to be a bust. But I'd like to get your guys' thoughts on that before we move around. Matt, what do you think of doing something like that? Just trying to stay in their lane, do their thing, make it. I mean, it's not going to be regional if everyone's streaming it online. But like, what's that basketball league Ice Cube does, where it's like 3-on-3? But even that, you're traveling from city to city all across the United States. With football, you don't have to do that. Go back to the roots and just stay regional. Go ahead. I'd like to hear what you have to say.
I think what if you go in the complete opposite direction, and instead of looking at the major cities, try to move out into maybe some suburban areas that you don't necessarily have to be in the middle of the big city, but maybe like a second tier group that maybe you can pull some other people and might be an option to go. I don't know, because if you're looking at streaming options and you're looking at possibly doing more internet-based sites instead of going with an NBC or CBS broadcast, you may be able to do some unique things as far as the camera angles and different things that I think if you did use outside affiliates or an outside company to broadcast the games, it might make that for a little bit more interesting, that you could probably do. Maybe you do it regionally, but I think you could do it in a way that you're taking – you're not going to take away from, like, a team in Pittsburgh. I don't foresee being successful because they're not going to compete with the Steelers. I don't see a team in Massachusetts competing with the Patriots. So I think you really have to pick and choose and not overload yourself like the NFL did with putting 1,000 teams in Los Angeles either. LA is a big market, but if you have a bunch of crappy teams, then all you do is just dilute that sample and it doesn't give you a quality product. I think if you have teams that are in an area that don't really have that, you could possibly make that work.
That was my second idea, so I'm glad you brought that up, is to try to keep it, if you don't want to hit the bigger cities, go regional, almost like minor league baseball. And you can even have it compete with the NFL and do something like maybe like the Friday market that the networks so desperately want college football to take over, and it's not really sticking because you're having these weird matchups. But why not try to do that? The networks want it, and you can do smaller cities, like put a team here in Raleigh, kind of as a dig to Charlotte. Then you go ahead. I mean, Charlotte's having their own problems. We're going to talk about it today on the show. Maybe instead of Pittsburgh, you put one smack in Harrisburg. Then you're able to draw from the two sides, and it's a city that there's not really a lot to do around there, so you're going to be able to draw people in. I mean, think of how many people pack State College. And then you could do that around how many other cities have wanted a team or like have talked about trying to pull a team in up and down just the East Coast. Think of Virginia, Richmond, Petersburg, like one of those bigger cities that's kind of like on the southern side of Virginia. Everything's either in DC that counts as Virginia. They don't really have their own thing. So you have some markets there that are picked up by minor league baseball teams. And then it's kind of the same thing that these teams take a bus up and down the East Coast, but they're all relatively close and they're just not in major cities. What do you think about that, if they work something like that out?
I think that could – go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to feed off your guys' thing. I think you guys are on the right track. But the one thing that I don't think they want to compete directly with the NFL. I think that if the XFL wants to be successful, you have to make it more fun, because a lot of people in things off and on the field, people are getting tired of it, stagnant. They're tired of the NFL. So if you can make a brand that, and I don't know what that'd be, more of like a passing league kind of thing, something where it's high tempo, fast, throwing the ball all over the field, and you can make it entertaining and be in the, small market areas and get that loyal fan base, you might have something really exciting there. But I'm not really sure how they would do it. But I think you guys are on the right track. It would have to be not in the big markets, but you'd have to get it in like a state college area, Harrisburg, like you just mentioned, in Pennsylvania. Could pull from both sides of the state, and then that way you get some loyal fans that don't have their own professional team. So I know down here in West Virginia, a lot of people are huge Steeler fans. West Virginia doesn't have its own pro football team. So if you could put it in an area that has diehard fans, like a West Virginia, other places in Ohio, maybe pull from different bigger cities, you might have something there.
Yeah, I think that's the direction they want to go. And competing with the NFL, that just might be what season they play in. Do they play in the spring or in the fall? Matt, you have anything else to add before we move on?
Yeah, I think regardless of what they do with it, there's been two other leagues who've tried to compete with the NFL and have failed. I mean, you could also make it three if you factor in the AFL NFL merger. But when you look at the XFL, you look at the USFL, both leagues at one point were successful because they were unique and they were different from what the mainstream NFL was. And the thing that caused them to implode from within was trying to take on the NFL directly and then trying to become what the NFL's established product already is. It's tough to take on someone that's already established in the way that they are. They have to make it unique. They have to do it their own way and do it in a way that people are listen to the demands of the people. And I think that they have the potential to put out a good product and make money on it yet to boot.
Yeah, and I think the internet's going to be a big part of that. Back when those other leagues tried, it was a network deal, make or break. There wasn't even really cable television. For the XFL, you had that a little bit, but even then, they were on, I think, only NBC, and it was like one game a week. You can't build fans that way. You have to have the regional networks that they are used to. And I think with now the WWE, they have their own streaming thing, kind of like Netflix, I'm pretty sure. So they're used to doing the technology, Vince McMahon is, that it's something that he can apply, and maybe he can throw that out there, feature one free game like the NHL Network does, and then you pay like $5 or something. They could easily build up someone that's looking for sports that don't have like the political commentary that we've been hearing, or like just the frustration over flags and things like that. It's tough to watch some of these games. But I'll use that as a segue into our Steel City update. Steelers lost over the weekend in a heartbreaking game to the Patriots we're going to talk about right after this. They are now sitting first in the AFC North. We already talked to they locked that up last week. They're 11-3. They are tied with the Patriots atop the AFC. Right now, they need the Patriots to lose a game and the Steelers win out because the Patriots owned the tiebreaker due to that head-to-head loss on Sunday. Going into the NHL, the Penguins, I'm getting a little worried because they're not scoring goals. I think some of the players have stepped up and said the same thing, that they just need to score goals. They're 5-5 in their last 10. The goal differential still negative 11, which if you have a negative goal differential, that's pretty much going to put you out of the playoffs in the bottom of the league. And that's where they're trending right now. They have 37 points, so they're only a couple behind the Metropolitan Division leader, the New Jersey Devils, right now. But I would like to say that they're going to turn it on. My prediction before the season started was that they were going to turn it on sometime in January. And I would hate for that to happen where they turn it on. It's a little too late. So I would like to see them get it turned around and jump up. But we'll be keeping an eye on them, especially when bowl season's over, as that will take our main focus here. And the Pittsburgh Pirates, there's been rumors that they're trying to trade Cole. The main rumor was that they were going to trade him during the Steelers game on Sunday to kind of temper the fan base's disappointment. But I have no idea what they're doing. It just doesn't make sense. I had a graphic that I saw on Reddit where only 3 teams haven't won their division, I think, since 1994. It's the Pirates, the Colorado Rockies, and the Miami Marlins. But the Miami Marlins have won 2 World Series in that time frame, and the Rockies made another World Series. The Pirates are the only team not to win their division or make their league championship game, the series before the World Series. So basically the worst franchise, and it's not looking better. We talked about it all season. I had high hopes that maybe this year they would start to turn around. They held on the Kutch. I just don't know what the direction is right now. If they trade him, there's no reason to trade him. They can't tell me it's based on a salary thing. I don't know. But, well, I'm going to get mad about it, but I'm going to get mad about the next topic anyway. We're going to bounce into the Patriots versus Steelers fallout. Matt, I'll get your thoughts as I collect mine. What do you think about the game?
It's what I told you was going to happen, dog. I done told you that New England was going to win. Doubt me all you want, but what I watched at the end of the game, the quote that I told my wife was, "I'm surprised that Ben's due to make a Ben move," and that's exactly what the end of the game happened. The pass, whether you say it's a catch, it wasn't a catch, a fumble, or whatever, the bottom line is while they're reviewing that, everyone should have been communicating, saying, What's the plan? If we don't get this, what do we do? There was no plan that when they came back and said it was an incompletion, that they had any kind of follow up what they were going to do. And then Ben does what the thing that really I've been waiting for all year. He drops back, throws it into the quadruple coverage, tips it up, New England picks it off, game over. That's the plays that I know Pittsburgh Steelers football to be. That they set you up thinking that they're gonna have that win, and they do something really stupid with no time on the clock. Not saying that you play it conservatively and you kick the field goal, that the defense doesn't just let the Patriots offense march down the field, because for as big as Gronkowski is, you would think that there was a no touch rule on him, because he was just running wide open all over the play like a bully down the middle of the field, and then they had no answer for it. So it's not to say that you play it safe and kick a field goal that they don't just take the ball and score right off the bat in overtime and end it anyhow. But I think it was poor decision making, poor coaching, and a poor decision making by a veteran quarterback who should know better. I know if one of my high school kids did that, and any quarterback that I've ever coached would know that I would have gone into Jupiter if they forced that throw with points being right there on the goal line.
Yeah, I agree with you. I wasn't sure what Ben was doing. I didn't expect it, but I'll break it down for those of you that might not have played football. So normally in a situation like that, they go to the review. Your offense should be on the field because it's either going to be a touchdown or it's going to be ruled an incomplete pass. There wasn't a fumble situation where you might have to run your kicking team out on the field. If it's an incomplete pass, you would have time to run another play. So your offense should be out there, and you should already have 2 or 3 plays in the huddle. What are you going to run? If this happens, what are you going to run? What's the next play going to be? Well, their first play was dumb. They ran a shallow, it was like an out route in the flat, but it wasn't far enough to get really out of bounds. And so then their second play was the fake spike. You never run a fake spike slant. Never. There's no plus side to that because you're throwing in the middle of the field where the ball can get tipped, unless you're going to throw it high, which, I guess he kind of did, but he pump faked it. So I don't know if it was the receiver ran the wrong route and maybe Ben's pump fake was based on what the hell are you doing? I don't know if there was a miscommunication or what, but throw the fade. And whenever Ben saw that it was going to be a slant, even if he was expecting it and it wasn't open, he needed to throw that off the goalpost to stop the clock and then get the field goal team out there. Because I think at that time, I don't know, I didn't look at the clock slow enough, but I think if he didn't pump fake, I thought that there would be enough time on the clock to get a field goal in on the incomplete pass. I think that would have been 4th down anyway. I don't know if you guys saw that or not, but those were my thoughts. Jeff, what do you think?
It was obviously the wrong thing to do, but I thought about the play a lot. I think it was a called play. I'd assume that Eli Rogers ran the wrong route because in that situation, you always run a fade because there's only one opportunity, one place you put that ball for your receiver to catch only. Throwing it across the middle is risky and obviously
I'm losing you a bit, Jeff.
Was worried that there wasn't. Oh, sorry. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back. Go ahead.
All right. I think he got nervous that he was going to run out of time because the way he pumped, it looked like he kind of froze, which you hate to see a veteran quarterback do that, but it happens. But I don't know. There's a lot to say about the game, but honestly, the thing that a lot of people are overlooking, and I think Matt touched on a little bit there, was Sean Davis's horrible coverage against Gronkowski on the last drive. He caught, 4 out of the 5 passes that drive? And
absolutely.
And looking at that coverage, they went single man up on him. Didn't have any extra help. They didn't double him. And I know it hurts because normally you'd have Shave Zier going man on him and maybe a safety over top. But they didn't do that. They put Sean Davis, who played pretty bad the entire game. I noticed that the entire game. It's just rough when Gronk's 6'6", 260, can run a 4.6 40. It's a really bad matchup, and Brady just exposed him. But I think that's bad coaching too. I don't know how you don't double him in that situation. Who else is going to hurt you? Cooks? No one else is going to hurt you. You got to be smarter there. You know, blitz them, double Gronk. Maybe have some edge pass rushers, but don't let Gronk one-on-one there. That's a bad move on defense, but Ben should have known better. He's a veteran quarterback. That's the wrong thing to do. I think it's just bad on the Steelers coaching because that's your play. That's your go-to play. Fake snap there. You got to have something better than that, especially after coming after a review like that.
Yeah.
Well, here's the other thing that I heard too. I heard driving home today that Ben Roethlisberger was trying to say that it was a coaching call, that the coaches radioed into him to throw the ball in that situation. To me, it sounded like a little kid throwing a temper tantrum. It was people were criticizing me for throwing a game-losing interception, and then he pitches the blame on Todd Haley. It was like Todd Haley wasn't back there watching you do a Mexican hat dance when you should have just threw the ball out of the back of the end zone. When you waste 3 seconds dancing around, and then furthermore on that play, it was clear that Bell had no route, no anything, because he's just standing back there watching the play. Brown wasn't involved. Brown was out with his injury, which It is what it is. But with the game on the line, how do you not try to get the ball to your Pro Bowl caliber running back that close to did we not learn anything from the Seattle Seahawks debacle with Marshawn Lynch down on the goal line? Like, you can't come up with one way to maybe get the ball to your best player and still preserve some time on the clock. Like, come on. I think that this is the baby stuff that drives me crazy. Now that it's the armchair quarterbacks have come out. It's what was the coach's decision? Well, you don't just because they say throw the ball in the end zone doesn't mean that you have to throw it into the middle of the field. Even Tony Romo up in the press box was saying they're calling a fake spike play. Like, it worked when Dan Marino did it because nobody knew that it was coming. But when everyone in the entire universe knows, when Tony Romo is not even playing the season and he's calling it out from the box, don't tell me that New England wasn't prepared for it.
Well, the Steelers have done it before, but you make a really good point there. How is Eli Rogers your number one receiver on that route? In that situation, you give your Pro Bowl running back, whether you're throwing it or handing it off, and then I give it to Martavis or Juju. I don't understand how that play is going through Eli Rogers for the game winner. But you also got to understand that I was thinking about this a lot too. Let's say the touchdown stands, Jesse James catches that touchdown. We're not having any of this conversation. We're going to talk about how Ben made all the necessary plays in that game and ended up driving down with Juju's catch to win the game. That's one thing you got to love about sports, because in a split second, he went from hero to GOAT over one silly non-catch call. And I was looking at this earlier today because I was wondering how Ben's doing so far this season, because the only thing that sticks out in my mind is that horrible Jacksonville game, which it looks like we're going to have a possibility of rematch in the playoffs. But if you look at it statistically, he's having the second best year of his career, which blows my mind because I just think of that Jacksonville game. There's just like these nightmare visions in my head where he's throwing all those picks. But if you look at it statistically, he has 26 touchdowns this year with 13 picks. His best season was like 2014 with 32 touchdowns and maybe 11 picks. So, I mean, statistically, he's not having a bad year. Already has over 4,000 yards passing. But I agree with you. He looked like a 22-year-old quarterback out there, not a veteran who's played in the NFL for over 10 years at this point. That was a bad play, but if that Jesse James catches a touchdown, everyone has a different tune Monday morning.
I think they handled it thinking that it wasn't going to be overturned. And I think that's kind of on the coaching. Maybe Ben, in a weird way, he was trying to say that they weren't prepared for that to be called not a touchdown. Because they weren't. They ran an awful play on the first blast. Yep. Then they did the fake spike, which if it was a read route, yeah, I would almost say Eli Rogers should never have cut that in. And I think even the announcer said like that should only be a fade. Maybe that's why they used him as their go-to. I don't know if he has height over the other guys.
Eli Rogers is the shortest one out of all of them.
Is he? Yeah, then I have no idea why Ben went that way. But yeah, I think that's why Bell kind of hung out, because I think it's normally set up as a one-step throw. Like you throw it immediately because you're trying to catch them off guard. But going back to the Patriots drive, going through my preview, I mentioned it that the Steelers can't go deep. It's going to hurt them in the long run. And what happened to get them in that position to go for the win? A crossing route or a dig route across the middle to Juju, who just turned it up the field and took it all the way. The Patriots had no one underneath, which was mind-boggling to me, because I said that's the only way the Steelers are going to move down the field. They're not going to take a deep shot. Are you kidding me? Especially with Brown out. There's no way they were throwing it deep. The Patriots should have just played like a two deep man under, and then just had a couple guys sitting there. They would have made the tackle, and that wouldn't even have been a discussion. But that's on them. And then on the Steelers, Davis one-on-one with Gronk was ridiculous. Now, I will admit I was wrong. I didn't think they had anyone that stretched the field. I didn't realize how quick Cooks was. But realistically, he's the only one. So once you have him, and if it's just a burner, you don't really have to double those guys. But they should have doubled Gronk. There's no way you keep Davis on him, especially on the 2-point conversion play. Because if you have another guy over the top there, Gronkowski was laughing as he caught that ball. He just laughed and was like, haha, like, you think you're going to cover me? Like, get real. So I don't understand why the Steelers, if they have someone on that, then that 2-point conversion could have went a different way. And then you're not even having this discussion anyway. Well, unless it was like an onside kick or whatever, but I don't know. Do you guys have anything else on the game? Those are my things. Steelers, I'm worried that if they are in this situation again, you can only get lucky throwing underneath routes a couple times. In the playoffs, that's not going to fly. They would never have even been down the field. Because anyone else, I'm sure the Patriots were just playing deep. And I could argue the catch, because to me, he made the catch. I know he was going to the ground. The fact that the NFL had to have a couple rule guys put out videos on their website and push them out to Twitter makes me think that they're just trying to talk their way out of it. But to me, diving across the line was a football move. And I thought anytime through the process of the catch, if your leg's down, well, they say if you get 2 feet down and make a football move, which your knee would count as 2 feet, I think. I don't know the exact rules. But they ruled it, instead of going with the feet in bounds and the football move, they went with the other definition, which means going to the ground, and then that eliminates the football move. So it didn't matter that he stretched to the goal line. That was the rule that they read whenever they went through it. I think that was the rule that the announcers had too during the game. To me, I thought it should have went with the other one, where he made a football move and then the ground can't cause the fumble. Either way, if he makes a football move, as soon as it breaks the plane, it's a touchdown. Once it breaks the plane, it's kind of like a running back diving over the pile. But it depends on which rule they're going to go with. They went with the other one, which then, of course, that's the correct call. But there's no black and white. And to me, that's the way that the refs can swing this game. Now they're setting up a rematch in Pittsburgh next year. The Patriots, with this win, have to go to Pittsburgh again next year. I don't know if you guys knew that. So what's one call? They're like, okay, well, we can set up another rematch, which we know we're going to get ratings unless Ben and Brady retire. And even if they do retire, you're still going to get ratings, because these are two of the most popular teams in the league. But that's all I have. We'll go around one more time. Jeff, you have any final thoughts on the game?
Yeah, just a couple final things. When it comes, this play, the catch, the non-catch, whatever you want to call it, I think this is a situation where you shouldn't have a law degree to determine if it's a catch. Any 12-year-old who plays backyard football, if they watch that play, like, oh man, good catch by him. He really, he stretched for the end zone. And I don't know if you want to boil it down that simple, but anytime, like anyone who's in their teenage, 10 through 14 who plays football, their first instincts is wow, he scored a touchdown, awesome. And I don't know why we can't make it that simple. Like, I don't know, it's just a bad feeling in my mouth. But just a few points, like with that final play going to Eli Rogers, I was looking up real quick. Eli Rogers 5'10", Juju 6'2", and Martavis Bryant 6'5". You throw that to Martavis, he's got the height advantage and the speed, which is funny. Before that last drive started, I'm like, they're going to have to go deep to stretch the field with Bryant. And I think it's interesting that they went to the rookie over Martavis. And then that's why I looked at their height and stuff. And Juju Smith-Schuster's having a much better year statistically than Bryant. Obviously, he got sat down and stuff, didn't play as many games, had some personal issues. But I think Juju Smith-Schuster is a rising star for the Steelers that I'm very, very excited about.
Yeah, and maybe I had them reversed in my mind. I was thinking that he was 6'5". But yeah, in that situation then, I guarantee Ben had a read to make, and he read the slant route then. Because that's the only thing that makes sense. Because you have a couple reads when you're doing the fake spike. He must have looked and thought that they had someone over the top, so they couldn't run the fade on the other side to Juju or Bryant, whoever was on the outside. Because that's the only thing that makes sense. He's going to have to read the pre-snap and then go with it. But, Matt, any thoughts on this?
One of the things people were making a big deal about was the fact that Pittsburgh had to play man-to-man when they played New England and got away from their traditional zone and blitzing packages, which I thought they handled well and showed that they can do. I think the real winners in this game is the NFL, because now when you have the rematch in December or January, you got what you wanted. It's going to be both of those teams playing again. All the hype's going to be about the game, about the catch, the non-catch, and it'll be settled on the field. The bottom line is, regardless of who won or lost this game, it doesn't matter. You win in the playoffs. Show me that Pittsburgh that you can beat New England when it matters in the playoffs, and I'll give a tip of the cap to you. Because what you showed me in that game is one of the issues that I have, is that you just get out-coached because you're just not prepared. You don't do the things that winners do to prepare, and you got to be ready, because Bill Belichick was ready. And I think Mike Tomlin should take a page out of his playbook and prepare and have contingency plans so that they're not caught with their pants down when they play again. And it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yeah. I mean, we predicted at the beginning of the year that it's going to be another rematch in the championship game. It's looking like it's going to happen. I'm hoping that Brown comes back, because that's one of the positives you can look at here. The Steelers basically were in a position to win the game without their best guy, their best receiver. So if they get him back in the playoffs, that's going to give them an edge. The Patriots.
Was that confirmed that it was just a calf issue?
That's what I hate about the NFL things.
Yeah.
They only have to say whatever it is as long as they don't put him on the IR. It looked like, well, to me, he was kicked in the air. If you didn't watch a play, his leg was swinging and he was kicked right in the shin, which normally means that there's a good chance that broke. Now, if it's just a fracture, he could put like some kind of things on it, or like shin splints or whatever. Now, it might be painful to run, and if that's the case, T.O. came back wearing an air cast or something like that, so you could technically play if it's not a clean break, which it didn't look like it was. If not, then it has to be a bone bruise. Because I don't think, there could have been swelling if it was hitting the calf, but it didn't look like it was a clear calf hit. It looked like it was on the shin side. So I'm thinking it's one of those two things. And both of them, I think, just heal with time and rest. So he's probably going to sit out the next couple weeks, and they'll get the bye in the playoffs probably. I don't know if that's locked up yet. So he'll have 3 weeks off to kind of heal up. If it's just a calf bruise, like a bone bruise, he might be fine, and you might see him wear something on that, kind of like a shin guard a soccer player would wear, because it's kind of an injury they would get. Now, if it is like a slight fracture and he runs on it, it could compound, and then it wouldn't be a clean break, but it would break, and then he'd be out pretty much for the rest of the offseason. So in the playoffs, I just don't see him sitting. Unless it was a clean break, then it would take longer to heal, and it looked like it wasn't. I don't know. Did you hear anything or see him on the field, Jeff? Just the way he was getting carried, making me think that it's worse than just a bruise, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's obviously hard. Like where my seats were is the opposite end of the field, so I didn't have a really good look at it. But he was carried off immediately and went straight to the locker room. From what I was able to see in the stadium. And I don't think it's good. I'm anticipating the Steelers and the Patriots to be playing an AFC Championship in New England now. That's one thing I was looking at the records here in the AFC. New England, controls their own destiny. They went out, tiebreaker of the Steelers. They'll have home field advantage throughout. But the thing is scary with Antonio Brown being out, and I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it's probably a bone contusion, something like that. I don't know really the medical terminology for that, but it's definitely some sort of bruise / maybe a slight fracture. But it's scary now though because the Jaguars are the 3 seed and they're playing the Bills. They'll play the Bills in Jacksonville. Say the season ended today, then they'd go to Pittsburgh with Antonio Brown out. That defense playing in Heinz Field earlier in the year ate the Steeler offense alive. So not having Antonio Brown for that game would be really bad. So I hope the Steelers sit him the next 2 weeks because I think we can get it done without him. You're playing at Houston and then home on New Year's Eve against the Browns. So rest him for the playoffs. Hopefully he has 3 weeks off. Get him back because that's going to be a huge game at Heinz Field against would most likely be Jacksonville if Jacksonville took care of business as the number 3 seed.
Yeah, Jacksonville's young, so I want to put it past them to drop one and move into a different position, but we'll have to see. Yeah. I think the last point that I wanted to make was the Shazier injury really hurt because I'm pretty sure he'd be one of the ones that would have been guarding Gronk. He had the speed to match up, and he's a bigger size. And whenever you lose that speed in the linebacker position, that's where you almost have to rely on the double team, and they didn't do that. They dared him to take advantage, and they did. I mean, you can't dare Tom Brady. You might be able to get away with that whenever you're playing your in-division guys like Joe Flacco and Andy Dalton, but you're not going to get away with that in Tom Brady. So I'm hoping that was kind of like a little bit of a pawn game where they're like, hey, we're going to show you this, but we're not going to show you what we got until we get into the playoffs. That's my hope. But knowing how some of the Steelers coaches stuff has gone down over the past couple of years, that hope's not too high. I did see a thing where the last time Steelers were 11-3 this late in the season, they won the Super Bowl and finished 12-4. Was it 2008? I forget what year it was. One of the Super Bowl winning years. So that's good news. Now we're going to go into the general NFL. The main topic I wanted to talk about was down here in Carolina. There's talk, and I think it's public now. It's in the national news that the Panthers are going to be sold by their owner Richardson. I think it's Jerry Richardson. He is getting pushed out basically for targeted harassment that he's been doing for, I guess, years, decades. He founded the Panthers, I'm pretty sure, in like 1995. And I thought he was one of the most well-respected owners. I haven't really had interactions with him personally, but I've seen some correspondence from the Panthers, and it always seemed like a classy organization. Now, I don't know if the national news is talking about this, but it seems like this has been in the works for a while because that was a quick turnaround that it came out that there was abuse at his hands, whatever it was, and then immediately the next day they're already in talks to sell the team. And I've seen some crazy things about people wanting to buy it. For some reason, people want what's that rapper, Puff Daddy?
P. Diddy.
Diddy.
Oh, Brother Love. What the hell is his name these days? Dude, he's going to try to buy the team, which would just be crazy down here because you go from having an owner that basically built the team, and they went to 2 Super Bowls, I believe, and they lost both. But in a relatively short period of time, if you compare it to the Jaguars, the Texans, and the Browns, the other expansion teams around that same time frame, they're light years ahead of the other franchises. Maybe not so much the Jaguars. Jaguars came in the same time, and I don't think the Jaguars have been to a Super Bowl though. So It's kind of crazy that it's getting pushed out. I didn't read too much into the dirty details, and I'm sure more will come out. But it kind of seems like things are getting kept under wraps as long as he agreed to step away. But I don't know. It's crazy. I did see a thing for the Carolina Panthers where, what was it? They played the Packers, and one of the linebackers, was it AJ Hawk for the Packers? He was yelling out that they were going to run a wheel route, and Cam Newton.
Matthews.
Yeah, Matthews.
Yeah.
Yeah, Clay Matthews. That's my bad. Dude, they're long-haired, blonde linebackers. Like, easily confusing them.
Cookie cutter, you know?
Yeah. You know how they make them up north.
Yeah.
But he yelled out that he was going to run a wheel route, and Cam Newton's like, hey, you must have been watching our film. And then he threw a slant anyway. So maybe Ben Roethlisberger was trying to feed off that, and he's like, I'll channel my inner Cam Newton. They think I'm going to throw this fake spikes fade. No, instead I'm going to throw a slant right over the middle so they can intercept it. Worked in the one game. But that's pretty much the only other games I watched. I did see that they suspended a hit on the Panthers guy, and I've seen some people complain about the hit. And I will say, it was one of the dirty hits. I'm not going to lie. I've seen it down here. It was an interception, and I think he hit Davante Adams, a wide receiver, which I didn't like Adams' response. He said, the play was almost over. The play wasn't over, you idiot. You were the guy was right behind you. You were supposed to be blocking. Instead, you weren't paying attention, and you got lit up. Now, the only problem I had with the hit was that he did launch. You can't launch into someone's head. If he would have went lower, like Juju did, it was almost the same situation. So Davante Adams got blown up because he didn't have his head on a swivel. He wasn't paying attention. He was probably ready to celebrate with his guy, or I guess he's on offense. I don't know. But he got destroyed. Maybe he was trying to make a tackle and he was kind of faking it. I'd have to go back to the tape. But he got destroyed, and he came out on Twitter and wrote a bunch of, like, a long essay crying about it. But the Panthers guy, if he would have just went low and crushed him in the chest, I wouldn't have had a problem with it. The fact that he kind of like jumped in the air, and I'll find the video and I'll put it on our Twitter for listeners that haven't seen it. But he kind of jumped in the air and hit him head to head. And I hate to see that because you know that's going to be an ejection, or if not, a suspension later on once the NFL decides which teams they need to know who needs to win to make the most money. But I don't know. We'll go around the horn for the NFL again here. You guys want to touch on that or any other games you guys watched? We'll start with you this time, Matt.
The one clip that I saw from last night's Falcons-Tampa Bay game that caught my eye was they have a clear audio clip of Matt Ryan yelling, "Get the F lined up."
Yeah.
And I like that as a leader. Get your guys lined up, get them ready to go. And I thought that usually the NFL does a very good job of policing what's coming out of players' mouths, but that was clear as a bell what he was instructing his teammates to do there.
That's funny, and I've heard that a couple of times. I think what they're doing is they're putting more and more mics on the sideline to try to pick up chatter, and what inadvertently happens is you hear a much clearer. So even if they cut his mic, I don't know where he was. I guess he probably on the field. But even if it's not him, them miking 2 or 3 different players, that's why you're able to hear clearly what Cam Newton's yelling, and other players. Even if they cut that one guy's mic, like he's swearing, cut his mic, the other mic's still going to pick it up. So you're if you're the sound guy, you're going to have to be hitting 3 or 4 kill switches in the back. And the more and more mics they add on the field, which I'm pretty sure pretty soon they're going to have everyone mic'd up, and the game will just be on a 30-second delay where they can hit that tape, because I don't see any way around. That's how people talk on the field. You're just going to hear more of it. Anything for you, Jeff, on the NFL?
Yeah, a couple things. The Cam Newton thing, you got to love that. And Matt, I'm sure you can appreciate that being a high school coach. It's very important in high school, college, NFL. You got to watch the films. You have to. It's a big thing, studying film. And for Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers to prepare for them to study the film, know their tendencies, and then put a play call in to like totally trip them up, go the opposite route with that wheel route that ended up coming a wheel to a slant. That is just great football coaching there. Gotta love that. And also shout out to Matty B, the Rams. Oh my God. I was talking so much shit in the summer, but hey, you were right, man. I gotta give dues when it's due. And they're the team to beat in the NFC, in my opinion, man. For them to put it on the Seahawks, they did, because like at the end of the day, I don't know if I'm just a Seahawk lover, but I think the Seahawks are a damn good football team. I mean, they're not quite the Legion of Doom they were a couple years ago, so a lot of guys hurt on that defense and stuff. But Russell Wilson, solid quarterback, and Todd Gurley and those Rams just ran straight through the Seahawks like they weren't even a professional football team. So yeah, shout out to you and the Rams. they're right now, because I know before the season, my two teams were the Steelers and the Packers. I'm still feeling good about, Pittsburgh and their chance in the AFC, but the Rams have to be the favorite right now in the NFC. The way they're playing, they're a damn good football team. When you can run the ball on offense and stop the run on defense, you have a shot at winning games, and that's what they're doing. And they're doing it very well.
All right, let's take our jump into we'll go into our college bowl update. I mentioned earlier I'm going to try to go ahead and pull up some stats. Hopefully nothing starts blowing up to get the updated score on the FAU game. And I think there were a couple other games this week, so we'll let you guys chat. Jeff, since you weren't on Sunday, any games that you're looking forward to watching or think you're going to be key this bowl season?
Yeah, I was just pulling up the games this year. There's two that I was really big on that I put really high in my confidence. One was Auburn versus UCF. I'm taking Auburn in that game. I thought they were a really good football team. Ended up 10-3 this year. They're going to be hungry. They could easily beat Georgia in the SEC championship and probably been in the playoffs. So they're going to be hungry. I think they're a much better team than the undefeated UCF. And then confidence-wise, I'm all in Ohio State versus USC. I know you've been harping on it all year. I don't think Darnold is as good as everyone's hyping him up to be, and I think that's going to be an easy win for Ohio State. I see Ohio State running away with that game. Unless USC can run the ball, I don't think they got a shot at winning that game. But those were two big bowl games that stuck out to me that I'm going to be really excited for. Then obviously the playoffs, just get my thing here. I'm really big on Georgia this year, but Oklahoma's scary. I feel like that's a bad matchup for Georgia. I don't know. I listened to you guys the other day. I can't remember what you had to say on that game, but I like Georgia a lot, but that's going to be a really interesting matchup. And then Clemson, Alabama, I feel like that's a flip of the coin. That can go either way. I like to say that Clemson wins. I hate Alabama, but Alabama, Nick Saban has a month to prepare for that game. That has to be scary if you're the Clemson coaches. So I have to say, I want to say that Georgia and Alabama are my two winners in those games, but I mean, time will tell.
Yeah, I think, and I wanted to come back, so I'm glad you brought up that. Was it the Oklahoma-Georgia game? I think I picked Oklahoma on the show, but I had a stat earlier in the season where teams that have the teams that win the national championship have to have a top 10 talent composite for their entire roster. And if they don't have that, then they haven't won the national championship ever since they've been keeping these recruiting rankings. Now, that's not to say Oklahoma is not going to beat Georgia, but I'm going to bring that up right now to kind of see where these four teams were, because it's kind of a crossover with the blue chip ratio, which I think SB Nation does. But Alabama's number one, I think, this year, which I think gives them the benefit of the doubt when these guys are looking behind closed doors. They know they have the most NFL talent. They might not have the best record, but they're going to put them in. Ohio State was number two, and I think that's why you had them in the discussion over some of those other teams. Georgia's fourth, has the fourth best roster, and they're in the playoffs. Clemson's ninth, and then Oklahoma comes in at 16. So I could see Oklahoma overcoming that first game, but it's going to be very tough for them winning back-to-back against top 10 rosters. And I think that's why it's almost impossible, and it's never really happened. I mean, that was before there was even a playoff. No team without a top 10 roster won the national championship. And that was, I think they started tracking these in 1998. So that's what we're setting up for here. Oklahoma's in. They have a chance to do it. Clemson was at 9. I think they were at 9 last year when they won it. So that's fairly low. But no team outside of that top 10. And I forgot to look at that when I was doing my research last week. And as I was going through my notes, I brought it up just to bring it up. Again, yeah, Clemson was 9th last year. So Oklahoma is looking like they would be the odd team out. I do think they have a good shot to beat Georgia, though. The update on the Florida Atlantic game, they're now up 50-3. FAU, I'm pretty sure I talked about them laying the smackdown on Sunday, and they are. So big key game for them. Matt, you have anything to add? I know me and you just talked about it a ton on Sunday.
That it's exactly what we said was going to happen. With people are drastically underestimating what Kiffin can do, especially when he has Kendall Browse as his offensive coordinator. Say what you want about Browse's dad and what he knew or didn't know at Baylor, but the guy can coach. He's coming from his pops was a good coach, and he learned from the master. And all they're doing is they're taking that speed and the talent down in Florida, and they're making the most of it. So I think that they could be a team that, if they keep the band together, coaching staff wise, they could noise here and making a jump potentially into a bigger conference in the next couple of years.
That's where when you're looking at these conferences, it's assumed that some of these teams are going to make the jump because it's not sustainable as it is right now. You have a couple conferences that are at 14 teams, and most likely in the long term they're going to go to at least 16. Some people said more than that, but I think 16 is the best number because you can do 14 pods. But some conference, one of those Big Five, is going to have to add teams. I think the Big 12 right now is sitting at 10. And the only reason they haven't jumped on some of these Florida schools is just because of location. There's no one close for them to travel with. So maybe they would take a shot at 2 of these Florida teams, and then you don't have to look for a new job. You already know the territory, and then you're opening up a whole new recruiting base in Texas if you do, in fact, join that conference. Not saying that they will, because you never know what's going to happen. It's all driven by money. But that's pretty much all I had for that. I did want to mention, I know we don't really talk college basketball, but Indiana pushed out Tom Crean last year because they lost to Indiana Purdue, Fort Worth, IPFW, and this past weekend, Indiana went and they beat Notre Dame in basketball. And Michigan already beat Indiana. I thought they were a mediocre team when I watched that game. And they go ahead, they put it all together, they beat Notre Dame. And so I'm thinking, hey, that could be a good win for Michigan whenever it comes tournament time. Nope. They go ahead and they lose again to Indiana, Purdue, Fort Worth, and it is a bloodbath. It's embarrassing. If you're an Indiana fan and you were talking about how this is a great splash hire, Archie Miller's coming in. Oh, great. Archie Miller's coming in. He's much better than Tom Crean. We deserve better than Tom Crean. And they're talking all this trash on Tom Crean. And then you lose. The final score was 92-72 to Indiana's. I'm looking at their site because I don't remember their name. It's Indiana, Purdue, Fort Wayne, Mastodons. I think their school was a part of the Indiana school system, and then Indiana pushed them out. The Mastodons, dude, they stomped them. Stomped the Hoosiers. So I thought that was funny, even though it doesn't really help the Big Ten any. But I did see another Big Ten school. Rutgers beat Seton Hall. And a lot of people talk trash on Rutgers, saying like they're not good at any sports. If there was one sport that Rutgers could really clean up in, it's basketball. Because they're so close to New York, and you get all those playground kids that might be overlooked. And in basketball, let's be honest, you only have to recruit 2 or 3 guys a year. So you can pull in, if they get lucky and they build get some great character guys, because they're right smack in the middle of New York, they're right close to Philly, and they're right close to DC, they can pull 2 or 3 guys a year. They could really build a powerhouse because now they have all this Big Ten money coming in. There's really no other school. Who are they competing with against there? Syracuse is like a hour's drive away. So, I mean, they're closer than them. Maryland maybe for the DC guys, Georgetown for the DC guys, but in New York, there's really not a big school there unless you're going further west into Philly with Villanova and Temple and them, but I don't think they're pulling kids from there either. You're looking at kids that are jumping to bigger schools and going all south. So I would like to see Rutgers do something because they're getting the extra money. That's a sport where I would think that they could easily recruit. Same with women's basketball, because if you look at UConn, they're doing the same thing. They're pulling all the top women from there. They go on a huge run. Now they can get women from all over the country. Rutgers can go ahead and dig into that. And I know we don't really talk basketball, especially not this early in the year, or I guess early in the sports year, because my calendar year for the sports starts with football and ends with hockey. Because you really can't, you can kind of ignore the Pirates because, you know, that calendar year part is kind of just like a depressing part that you just don't want to think of. You're kind of looking forward to football. So kind of early in this calendar year for sports, basketball is coming around. But that's all I had to add in today. Anything else you guys want to talk about? Jeff, you haven't been on the show. You want to add in anything you've been up to? You've been doing Spaces or Laces every Thursday, I believe, on YouTube. And you have a podcast, so make sure you subscribe to that. You want to tell us about that?
Basically just want to go, especially this time of year, going into football, going to some different sports topics, try to make it 20 to 40 minutes, very short to the point. I like to start off with like a light 'em up segment, talk some shit on certain people and events that are going on, and then basically just talk a lot about the Steelers and the NFL and college football, obviously this time of the year, but basically just a sports show, 20 to 40 minutes where I rant about current topics and my favorite sports teams. But there is one thing I did want to mention today, because I heard you guys talk about with the bowl predictions. Arizona State has to be the biggest cluster right now of any college program. With Herm Edwards coming in, my boy Fraud Graham leaving. It's so funny because I was at Pitt when the whole debacle happened on the Pitt football team. I remember early that day, like leading up to the bowl, I get a text like, all football players have to be at the Peterson Event Center. I can't remember, like 9 a.m. or something. And it was so weird. It's like we never, ever met at the Peterson. We always met on the south side of the football facility where the Steelers, Pitt shares a facility with the Steelers. So it was so weird to have something on campus. And we go up there and we're all in like the press conference room at the Peterson Event Center. And they just like lay it on us, just rip the Band-Aid straight off. And it was unbelievable seeing, 105 kids all just straight disbelief. Bunch of the kids asking, what's going to happen at the bowl game? Are we even going? Are we going to protest the bowl games? The way, how he went out at Pitt was, basically in the middle of the night, jumped on a plane to Arizona State. So I think it's funny now, a few years later, he gets out. They bring in Herm Edwards, the program's in shambles. Basically another program that just gets Todd Graham'd. I don't know what else to say other than that. Like, just so funny the way he went out. And like you guys made an interesting point. I think for people out there, if you haven't did your bowl picks yet, look at the programs, who the coaches that are leaving or left on bad terms. Because I know when we went down to the BBVA Compass Bowl in Birmingham, Alabama, no one wanted to be there. We had an interim head coach. Everyone was just, the older kids were going to the bar every night, this or that. So there's no discipline. Everyone's just trying to have fun and stuff. So if you want to do well in the bowl pick'ems this year, look at the programs the coaches are, leaving or they're going to get fired, stuff like that, because a lot of those college kids aren't going to want to play hard. They're going to have fun, going to a bowl game rather than being disciplined and, playing hard for their interim head coach or the head coach that's leaving. So I think that's an interesting thing to look at during bowl season. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up the Herm Edwards thing, because I looked up his record because I didn't want to dig into him too much, because I couldn't remember. Coaching in the NFL, he hasn't coached since 2008 in the NFL. And I thought he started earlier. This is saying his first year was 2001. And I thought he coached in the 90s. But, dude, his NFL career is pretty bad. People rip on Harbaugh for having, not won a championship. Herm Edwards only won 54 games. He lost 74 games. His regular season win total is 422. 422. That's awful. He did make the playoffs a couple of times, and he ended 2-4 in the playoffs. So he never made a championship game. He didn't do anything. So he was awful. Almost, 9 years ago? 9 years ago, he was pretty awful as a coach. So bad that no one wanted to hire him. And Arizona State hired him so fast, it seemed like. Like they were like a week. Like I feel so bad for the other boosters, because I have a feeling that one booster was behind this, and that booster, everyone has to ostracize him or be like, "What the hell is going on?" I highly doubt everyone in Arizona State had a sit down meeting and they're like, "All right, who's your number one?" Herm Edwards. I can't even laugh at them, because it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And now watch this, because this is going to have repercussions for Rich Rod at Arizona. Because Todd Graham, he gave him some recruiting battles. And I would say now that Herm Edwards, he's going to be so far gone. I compare this kind of to Lovie Smith. I was excited that Illinois was at least trying to get a better program by hiring Lovie Smith, even though I figured recruiting wasn't going to be his thing, and I felt like it was a retirement job for him. And that's kind of what it's looking like now. Herm Edwards is even worse than that. This isn't even a retirement job. This is more like you hire, like, I don't know. I can't even put it in terms. It's almost like a kind of like a cigarette company hiring like some old actor now to try to like rebuild the brand. Like years after everyone knows cigarettes are bad for you. That's what this feels like to me. Like everyone's like, ooh, Herm Edwards, he was bad so long ago. Like, why are they running these ads for him? It just doesn't make sense.
But I'll say this in Herm Edwards' defense, like he was coaching in some of those random like Senior Bowl games and different things. So it's not like he's been completely like isolated from everything. He just hasn't can do worse than any of the other guys that get recycled through.
Rich, I don't know if you want to go, but I that's one thing I'd really disagree with you, Matt. He's not removed from football, but he's removed from college recruiting. When has he had really any experience? Like, think about this. Herm Edwards, how is he going to relate to some 17-year-old kid who's deciding where he wants to go to college? I don't know. If I was 17 years old, I'd be like, why do, like, you know what I mean? Like, you know how young kids are, like, you know, how they are and everything. They're going to be like, wow, I don't want to play for a washed up head coach. That's what they're going to think. He might know football still, but he is not going to recruit kids with the social media age now. This is such a bad look. Like, I watched the Washington-Arizona State game this year, and I was impressed with Arizona. Arizona State had a lot of talent on the team. Todd Graham mismanaged it, wasn't the right head coach for it. And then they had all this talent, and they bring in Herm Edwards. I just don't know if any 17-year-olds are going to want to come play for him. I know I wouldn't.
Well, yeah, I agree. And it's not like he's coming in, and no one knows him. I said that I wanted John Gruden to go to Tennessee because I thought that would have been a fun hire. A traditional college football powerhouse, getting a fun, media-loving guy that everyone in the media seems to love. And you know he's worked directly with kids getting them ready for the NFL. Herm Edwards doesn't do that. And John Gruden has a Super Bowl. Like, hey, I've been out of the game, but here's a Super Bowl ring, kids. And remember, I'm doing those quarterback camps. I'm drafting guys. If you're a quarterback, you should come play for me. I'll get you right in the NFL. Boom, recruiting pitch over. Just show him the Super Bowl ring. Herm Edwards is like, yeah, I coached in the NFL once. While he's telling him the kid's on Wikipedia looking at his record like, ooh, coach, ouch. Yeah. Or like NFL sports database or whatever. It's not a good look. Like, what's he going to point to? Yeah, I used to coach in the NFL. What was that movie? Where the guy, it was like a baseball movie. Was it Angels in the Outfield? Where the kid, he comes up and he's like, hey, you used to be Mel Clark. And he's like, yeah, I used to be. It's like a Major League Baseball player that's in the dugout. The kid goes to the game and he sees him. He's all old and washed up. And instead of asking for his autograph, he just says, yeah, you used to be that guy. You used to be good. That's what this reminds me of. Like, he's going to come into a thing and they're going to be like, hey, you used to be an NFL coach. You used to be a football coach. I just don't see how this is going to work out. But that's all for me. We'll go around and do some closing thoughts now. Matt, you have anything to end the week on?
The last thing that I have is I saw that Ohio State narrowly avoided NCAA sanctions because of issues that they had with running back defensive end recruit Micah Parsons. Back when they were on the game day set, he had a chance to meet Eddie George and Kirk Herbstreit. And I guess like with the way that the visit went, like while they were like on set, he had a chance to meet him, but it ended up becoming a recruiting violation because I guess the way that the rule states that a prospect may not participate in team activities that would make public or media aware of the prospect's visit. So because like it was on the game day set, NCAA like flagged it. And so then they had to back away from him, and he was like heavily leaning towards him, and they had to say, no, we're not going to recruit him anymore so that they could avoid the sanctions. I just think, like, how stupid can you be? Like, especially from Herbstreit, who would have to know at this point, like, what he can and can't do. For as much of people saying he's a homer, you would think that he would have had enough common sense to say, hey, it's a nice meeting you, but we can't do this because it's going to hurt your ability to be recruited at the school.
Yeah, and okay, so just a general fan view. I'm glad you brought this up. It's breaking news. It's looking like, I don't know if Ohio State can recruit him anymore or he can still sign, but they just can't talk to him. In the meantime, I don't know how it's going to shake out. But to me, as a sports fan, it's kind of like, who cares? Like, why is this an NCAA violation? If it's on campus and they're having an event, I think you should be able to do it. I throw on my maize-colored glasses because it's at Ohio State, and I say, what the hell? Who is his handler that you're the recruiting coordinator? Why would you even bring him close to the game day stage? Why? I mean, have him meet the players, do something else. Like, what are you doing? Come on. But either way, hopefully that works out and he doesn't go there. Jeff, any closing thoughts for you this week?
Just closing thoughts. Herm Edwards, once again, bad move. Out of the game. Just, it's 2017. It's not, 2002. I just don't get it. And it looks like the NFC South was the best division of football this year. They're looking like in the NFC, they're going to have 3 people make the playoffs, in the Falcons, Panthers, and Saints. So I think that was interesting because wasn't sure how the Falcons were going to do. Because they started out bad this year. It looked like a Super Bowl hangover, and it looks like they're going to sneak in. Right now, if the season ended, they're the 6th seed making the playoffs. So the Falcons with Matt Ryan, they can make some noise in the playoffs because that defense is fast. You have Matt Ryan. You have weapons on offense. I think, right now, if I'm looking at the NFC, the Rams are my favorite, and then I'm afraid of the Falcons getting hot in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think we actually called that. If you go back and listen to our preview for the NFC South, I think we had the win totals low because we thought they were going to be the best division and beat each other up with a chance to have a low win team get into the Super Bowl. So it's cool that that's looking like that's what's going to happen. And your Herm Edwards thing, Jeff, I'll end it on this. So we have a fantasy football league together here, and we mentioned it back at the preview of the season. Well, it just ended, and we have an award for the guy who has the highest win percentage. We just call it the Andy Reid title, the guy who has the most wins all time without winning the Super Bowl. We should also just change our Sacco to be called the Herm Edwards.
Yeah.
Just a bad move, coach. Unless he shocks us, dude, because I'll come back and I'll eat crow on that one. But I think he's done.
Oh, definitely. I mean,
all right.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool, but I just don't see it happen with him.
Yeah. We'll end with that. Thanks for listening. You can go ahead and follow us on Southbound Sports. We're on Facebook, Twitter, S-Bound Sports. I always forget that. I was hoping that they would lengthen that. But we stream live every Tuesday at 9. Check out Spaces of Releases. Follow us on YouTube. You can catch Jeff's show. And make sure you subscribe to both our shows, the Southbound Sports Show and Spaces of Releases on iTunes or your favorite podcast host. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening.